I cannot tell you how many women I have talked to who say they do not like being in circles or groups or Bible study groups with other women. And when I ask them why, 9 times out of 10, it's the same story. I've been burned by other women, either through being talked about behind their back, jealousies, pettiness of all kinds, insecurities. It's just been a disaster for them, and they're like, I'm not going back into that. We were there to study the Bible, but we were there to do it together. And so since there's that together piece, I asked them, what did they want from one another? And I was not surprised to hear words like trust, integrity, the truth, honesty, depth, insight, realness, vulnerability. Because I mean, come on, don't we want that from our friends or any group of humans that we have to sit in a circle with? I had this picture in my mind. I want to be able to sit around a circle with the Bible right in the middle and have a group of women that so trust one another that they could stop right in the middle of the discussion and say, wait, hold on a second. I'm not feeling quite right. That was a weird interaction. Can we talk about it for a second? Like, that's what I want, like such honesty, such vulnerability, such realness, that as we study the Bible together, which is hard to do, we have complete trust that we're with one another in a way that's honest and real. So Annette, one of the Bible Lab members, kind of peeks up her hand and is like, hold on, Melissa, I want that too. I want the same thing that you want, but I would never stop the discussion and just say, hey, I have a problem here. She's like, it just wouldn't happen. I would not be able to do that probably. Enter her idea of this open floor. Let Annette tell you why she wanted this.
For someone like me who struggles a lot with confrontation, if I can have set aside time at the beginning and end of a meeting where there's an expectation that people will probably say something, I'm going to be like 20 times more brave, you know? It's going to be so much easier for me to say, I felt like you were speaking over me. You know, when you said XYZ, it hurt my feelings. Being able to be honest about those things is so important, and it's so difficult to do for someone who struggles with confrontation without there being an invitation to do so.
Opening the floor at the beginning of the meeting, saying, is there anything that has made you uncomfortable from last week? Speak up. And then at the very end of the night, before we close out, we say, okay, is there anything we need to discuss as a group that has made you uncomfortable or has hurt you, or you feel like you've overstepped your bounds with someone else? Speak up. And we sit and we wait. So since that was on night 1, we opened night 2 with an open floor, and it was silent. So per usual, I open my mouth and I start talking. As I came out of week 1 with these friends doing this thing called Bible Lab, I thought, oh, I'm really nervous because I know myself that I'm going to run over people, be so direct it feels confrontational, which is not what I feel, but it's how it looks and sounds. And so I was expressing that with them, that I was afraid that this is what I was going to do. And as I was ending sort of that, like, here are my fears, and Carissa was like, well, now that you mention it, Melissa, and I'm like, oh, for crying out loud, open floors are going to get me in so much trouble. On the first night, I had made up a definition of learning because I went to Webster's dictionary and I'm like, I don't like that definition of learning. I want my own definition. The definition was something like moving from ignorance to understanding. That was our working definition of learning, which is what we were sitting around that circle to do, to become learners, but learners together. And Carissa piped up, as she should have, because this is the dynamics of this group. She piped up to say, but wait a second, and she asked a question about the definition. And I just shut her down, and I told her and everyone else why I was right. And then I just moved on past it, not letting her finish her sentence, not letting her finish her thought. From my perspective, I thought it was great. I'm like, Carissa came with some pushback. I love pushback. I told her why I thought I was right, and then we moved on with the conversation. It was great. Here's Carissa's perspective.
My first thought was, oh no, I didn't get to finish my thought. Now I'm stuck with everybody in the room thinking that I'm thinking one way when I'm actually was thinking a complete different way. So that was uncomfortable for sure, because now the impression on the very first night with people that most of the people I've never met before in the room was, now they think I'm a person that is unbendable. I'm a processor at the end. Like, I have to think something through. I really have to think something through. And it might take me a few days. So I wasn't comfortable in the moment of saying, stop, wait, hold on, that's not what I meant. I was just horrified. I was just literally sitting there horrified. Like, did that just happen? That was a train wreck. But I wasn't comfortable enough to say, stop, wait, let me finish, because I felt like I had almost been the person that was interrupting already and had kind of derailed it. And so I certainly wasn't going to continue down that path. And then thinking, maybe I'm just like overthinking this and it wasn't as bad as it was in my head. But of course, then the next thought is, of course it was as bad as it is in my head.
So Carissa's inner dialogue was worlds apart from my inner dialogue. Here's where we get in trouble. We have relational tension, Carissa and I, but there's only one of us who knows it. And this puts Carissa in a tricky situation because she knows that we're going to come back the very next week and we're going to have an open floor conversation about any weird dynamics or anything that had bothered us through the week. So she knows she has a decision to make.
So I actually thought about it over and over during the week, but I am not a touchy-feely person. I'm just not. I'm not. And so for me, my thoughts on that was, I don't want that part in our group. Like, do we have to have that part in our group? I was still like, why am I making this such a big deal? And why is this bothering me to this level? Even up until that night, I was undecided on what I was going to do, whether I was going to say it or not say it, because I don't know. I'm from a generation where, you just let things roll off your back and you keep moving. And so for me to say this bothered me, was that really necessary?
Is that really necessary? How many times have you thought that? Is it really necessary that I say that out loud to him or to her or to this group? I mean, just kind of get over it, Melissa. Like, it's no big deal. Is it really necessary? Yes, it is necessary. And I think we pose that question to ourselves to talk ourselves out of doing the hard thing of being honest with one another.
Melissa said the floor is open for anyone. And then one person said something, that kind of dovetailed into that moment. And I took that. I was still literally undecided sitting right there in that moment of what I was going to do. And when she said what she said, I said, that's my green light. And so I told Melissa and the whole group, okay, this is what happened. And this is what I felt. That in that moment last week, this is how I felt. I felt like I was not being understood in what I was actually trying to communicate. I was actually quite scared about doing that because I'm not a touchy-feely person. So opening myself up like that and saying this is what happened and that it bothered me and this is how I felt. I don't know. It's just not my norm. I would rather not be a person that anybody has to tiptoe around. I said that in the group, and that was really important to me. And so saying that I had a problem with anything made me feel like maybe somebody won't be comfortable now with me. And so that was kind of something I was struggling with in the moment. But being authentic and being able to be myself, I think is an integral part of being in a group. So we jumped off of the deep end and actually talked about it.
We did indeed talk about it. And here from my perspective, what was happening as Carissa stepped up to say what was bothering her, I felt deeply grateful. Like, here we are actually living out these values, not just talking about it and saying we want to have a group that's honest and open. We're literally living it out. So there was this deep gratitude. And then there was this deep sense of something that I couldn't quite name in the moment, but I felt my whole body tense up, even my face. And I just kept telling myself, relax your face, Melissa, relax your face. But as I went home to reflect, I thought, was that tenseness as I was hearing her give her point of view on her and I's interaction? Was it defensiveness? Like, no, I don't think that's what it was. I don't think it was defensiveness. Why don't you think it was defensiveness? Oh, because the tensing of my body was knowing she was 100% right. Like, as soon as I heard it come out of her mouth, there wasn't like that's not how I saw it. It was like, oh, yes, that is what happened. And I got embarrassed. And that's what I think that tenseness was. I was resisting. against it because I was embarrassed that I had done that then to Carissa in front of everyone, that we were now talking about it out loud in front of everyone, and I am supposed to be the leader of this thing, and here I am so clearly messing up, and I felt embarrassed until I could tell myself, relax and receive it. Relax and receive it. Carissa was nothing but kind and gentle and handled it wonderfully. My job on my end was to relax enough to ask God to speak to it so that I can learn for the next time.
So after going through the open floor and saying what I felt I needed to say and clarifying, the moment where I knew that it was the right thing to do is when I said I was so worried about people thinking that I was not teachable and not bending. And I saw to my right 4 people at the same time shake their head and say, no, that's not what we thought. And when you see that, you realize, okay, I was thinking that in my head, but it wasn't the truth. And having those ladies confirm that's not what we thought, it felt very finished in that moment. It felt like, okay, I don't have to worry about this anymore. I can put this aside because that was not the perception, and it was just all in my head, and we're good. And so it was relieving is what it was. It was relieving.
And what that whole scenario did was it brought real, I hope, trust between Carissa and I and the whole group as we worked this out with each other in front of one another. Here's what could have happened. Carissa could have kept that to herself and been like, I'm just overreacting. There's no need for me to say anything. And you know what would have happened? I guarantee you, she would have built up a wall toward me and toward everybody else in the group, because she's got to protect herself, right? She's not going to speak up again because I shut her down. She's going to think these people think XYZ of me. Wall goes up even higher. And Carissa would have slowly drifted from the group, either by coming and sitting quiet or making excuses of why she could not come and would just slowly fade out of the group. That is what happens when we are not honest with one another. So, what does this look like for you? Could your Bible study group take this idea and make it your own? I would encourage you to share this video with them and just have a discussion. What could this look like for you guys? It doesn't have to look the same as Bible Lab. It can look like what you want it to look like. But how are you protecting your culture in your small group of radical honesty, especially if you are the leader? I would love to hear about what you think about the open floor in the comments below. I love getting your perspective. I will see you next week, probably. And if not, I'll see you the week after.